everybody for being here this morning. Today we're going to be talking about careers in ADR, what the different options are, what the different careers kind of look like, and why ultimately pursuing either a certificate or a master's degree in an ADR related field can be of benefit in really so many different areas of our professional lives. So before we do get started, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Amanda Thyden, and I am one of our career advisors at USC Gold. I also do some of our academic advising for our ADR related programs. So as a background introduction, I went to law school. I am an attorney. I practiced nonprofit law for several years before joining USC Gold, and I also served as a mediator and a restorative justice facilitator. So this is really where, my heart is, where my passion is. And so I love working with our students. I'll talk at the end if you guys have questions or anything like that, but I'm more than happy to help, answer any questions you may have, meet with you guys separately to talk about, ADR careers, to talk about our programs, whatever it may be. So with that, you guys already know we are recording this session, which does include all of the Q&As and things like that, just for folks who aren't able to make it this morning. So now I'm going to go ahead and dive into our presentation. So I'm just going to kind of get started here. As you guys know, presumably the fact that you are here indicates that you guys understand that ADR is a rapidly growing field. Fewer and fewer lawsuits, less than 2%, even make it to trial. So an overwhelming majority of litigated disputes are resolved through ADR processes like conciliation, negotiation, mediation, and arbitration. And the US Bureau of Labor Statistics reports the new employment of arbitrators, mediators, conciliators is projected to grow by 10% by 2026, which is faster than the overall job rate is supposed to be. So the areas of ADR really are rapidly expanding. And so opportunities for entering education and training about ADR are also increasing. So advanced degrees and graduate level certificates are really proliferating and expanding in universities across the US. Many professional roles in ADR require an advanced degree. Some don't, but I just want to kind of give you a start of an introduction into what all of this looks like. So generally speaking, all ADR professionals have to accrue some kind of education, experience, and training to enter or even to advance within the ADR field. An advanced degree in ADR can offer a distinct advantage in this regard, right? It shows I am an expert in this particular area. So for us at USC Gold School of Law, we offer incredible graduate level training from pioneering practitioners, prominent academics across the ADR spectrum. So just to give you a little insight, the LLM in ADR is the legal master's degree for those seeking to further their legal education and specialize in ADR as a neutral or as an advocate. It doesn't have to be solely somebody who wants to be a mediator or an arbitrator. It can be for an attorney who wants that additional ADR perspective. With an MDR, that's our Masters of Dispute Resolution, and it's ideal for non-lawyers who are looking to gain education and experience. So again, we're going to focus this presentation on ADR careers and review several of the most promising and prominent career paths. So some of the key questions are what training is required to become an ADR professional? And I wish I could give you a straight answer, but with so many things related to law or that are tangential to law, it's just not that simple. So it does vary state by state, and it can also vary within the practice areas that you might be mediating or working as an arbitrator in. So depending upon the state that you live in, it can honestly be a simple Google search of, requirements in California to be a mediator. There are not requirements currently in California if you Google it. However, we don't have the answers for every single state. So you want to be sure to look into that. Do I need to become an attorney to practice as an ADR professional? Absolutely not. You do not need to be an attorney to practice as an ADR professional. But do lawyers have an advantage in the marketplace when looking for an ADR job? Yes. There's an inherent kind of trust and belief that an attorney has experience, may know a bit more about the judicial process or about the laws that might be involved. So often, yes, both attorneys and former judges do tend to have advantages in the ADR marketplace, whether as mediators or arbitrators. So now we're going to look into just the different areas of ADR practice, what some of the options actually look like. Little caveat before we get started is most of this information is specific to ADR in California. If you come to USC Gold, you will be living in California. That's kind of, where we live and work. So that's why. So where possible, we're going to point out where the practice of ADR in California is unique and may differ from other states. But again, as I said earlier, if you are a prospective student hoping to pursue ADR in another jurisdiction, you should probably consult the relevant authorities for their specific requirements. So for ADR private practice, the market is made mostly of mediators and arbitrators, and is really robust and competitive. So it's something that you want to make sure that you are ready. You know what you're getting into. You've done your informational interviews. You've worked as a mediator or volunteered as a mediator, or you have had experience in arbitrations, whether as an attorney or as an observer, as a supporter at places like FINRA. You can work as an arbitration administrator where you're working with that. So you want to make sure that before you dive into private practice, you have the experience needed to really be the leader of the mediation or arbitration before you start asking for paying clients, right? So first, we'll talk about mediation. So as many of you know, in mediation, a trained neutral third party helps parties to a dispute reach a mutually agreeable resolution. There are lots of different types of mediation practice, but what all of them have in common is that parties retain control over the outcome, right? Mediators never decide a case or issue a decision. Parties generally retain their right to file a lawsuit in court if a resolution cannot be reached. So specifically in California, mediation is still an ungoverned profession. The California state legislature and the state bar do not consider mediation to be the practice of law. So that's why you do not need to be an attorney. There's no barrier to anybody just hanging out a shingle and offering their services as a mediator. So it really provides a maximum opportunity for talented neutrals. And it also presents a little bit of a credibility gap, right? So with no commonly recognized credential for mediators, practitioners have to constantly market their training, their skills, their experience, because you can't really say, oh, I'm a licensed mediator. I'm a certified mediator from the state, right? There's different organizations that you can get credentials from, but it's not a requirement. So court-based mediation panels do represent an exception to this, Many superior, state, and federal courts have mediation panels, and most require education and training specific to their subject matter. So, for example, if you are on a federal appeals court panel, mediators generally have to be practicing attorneys. So, there you must have your JD, you must have passed a bar. For family law or dependency court, mediators typically have to have some kind of counseling credential. But most professional mediators are private practitioners. So often this involves opening up a practice and marketing your services to attract clients in a competitive marketplace. So how competitive? This, again, it's something I can't necessarily say because there's people from all over today in our presentation, but what I would recommend is go to Google, look for Yelp, and just search mediator to view the competition in your area, to see how many mediators there are, how many dispute resolution companies. And then for those who are entrepreneurially inclined, there is absolutely an opportunity to grow a successful business with the freedom to accept cases when and where and however you wish. You get to determine what cases you want to mediate. You don't have to take any case that comes into your door. If you are interested in, hold on one second, sorry. If you are interested in only mediating family law cases, you can do that. If you only want to do special education cases, you can do that. It really is entirely up to you. So while mediation practice groups do exist in California, they are still relatively few and far between, and the business model hasn't gained a whole lot of traction just yet. But many private practice mediators are also affiliated with ADR providers. So usually on some kind of contract basis, and ADR providers offer the solo practitioner increased visibility, marketing, legitimacy, all of that. So there's various different ways to set up a private mediation practice, or like set up your own and then partner with others. So I just wanted to give you a start to that information. So moving on a little bit to arbitration. Arbitration involves parties to a dispute submitting their matter to a third-party decision maker outside of a formal court proceeding. So an arbitrator's decision can be binding or non-binding, usually agreed upon in advance by the parties to the arbitration. So parties don't retain control over their dispute, and they may have to waive their right to a court proceeding. So it really depends upon what's already been agreed to by each of the parties. So a relatively small number of large for-profit arbitration providers dominate the marketplace by building panels of high-profile, really distinguished practitioners. Again, a quick Google search for arbitration will reveal the most well-known arbitration resources. These for-profit providers create panels of neutrals, typically, again, arbitrators and mediators, and heavily market their services to large law firms and big businesses. Similar to what I mentioned about mediators, they offer a solo ADR arbitrator increased visibility, marketing, and again, that legitimacy that comes with working with such a large group. So most professional arbitrators in California are affiliated with one or more of the arbitration providers. And the majority are legal professionals that are either practicing or retired attorneys or retired judges. That's just how arbitration tends to work here. And most specialize in a few areas like construction, insurance, labor management, something like that. That's typically what we tend to find. So let's move on a little bit to consulting and training. So experts in the field of ADR and really any field often have the opportunity to supplement and grow their practice by training others, right? So, for arbitration specifically, there are dozens of institutions that publish their own sets of rules for the arbitration process. These are called arbitral rules. Many practitioners begin their training career with these basic courses. There are also endless specialty subject matter trainings for arbitrators. So whether it's like sports arbitration, media and entertainment arbitration, corporate arbitration, different things like that, you can become an expert in that area. And if you already are an expert, then you can conduct those trainings for others. And in mediation, experienced practitioners can supplement their practice by offering training services as well. So basic training is most mediators receive basic training early in their careers. Many of you probably already know this. These are often provided as part of degree programs like what we have, or through nonprofit agencies that are recruiting volunteers. So you can go for, California, we have the Dispute Resolution Programs Act. And so if you conduct 40 hours of mediation training through a designated provider, you can become a DRPA, DERPA, certified mediator. And that does hold weight in the mediation space. There's also specialized mediations like family, divorce, employment, workplace mediations. And so for experienced mediators that want to specialize or serve an unmet need in the marketplace, this is a really good way to tap into that. And then experts are also often sought to offer less formal, situational kind of skills training. For example, effective communication and conflict, or conflict de-escalation, or something like managing different personalities in the workplace, leadership styles, things like that that are not directly related to ADR and to mediation, but kind of indirectly are and are still immensely helpful in dispute resolution generally, as almost like a lifestyle or a workplace, benefit. So there's workplace ADR training that can be in response to some kind of workplace conflict. There's corporate trainings that can be more of a proactive approach. There's executive trainings, which certainly are always helpful, right, for those in leadership. And then there's ADR systems designs. So entities from local nonprofits up to foreign governments that might need help and assistance designing systems and protocols to handle disputes that arise in their services, businesses, or workplace. So you can partner with these executives, with these entrepreneurs, with these planners, and help them decide how they're going to decide their dispute resolution, or how they're going to design their dispute resolution processes. And then there's also strategic consulting, which is where you work with attorneys and their clients to really optimize strategy ahead of an ADR process. So you could meet with them, talk about their facts, talk about the opposing arguments, and then really try to figure out what their best path moving forward is with them. So that's consulting and training, some of the most common options. And then there are also regular and contract positions. So many ADR graduates prefer employment, full-time employment with another company over small business ownership. So regular and contract positions do certainly exist in the ADR field. And so we'll talk about that in just a second. But some of the pros of working in those areas are you get a predictable income, right? When you are with an organization, you get traditional work hours, right? Nobody should be calling you very much for, something at 7 p.m. because your workday is 9 to 5. There's also benefits that come with not having your own, small business to look after. Those kind of general things that are true, not just for ADR professionals, but for anybody who is a small business owner. But one of the cons there is that practitioner roles in a larger organization are actually more rare. They're a little bit harder to find. So for employed practitioners, these positions, like I said, are rare and are pretty popular and thus more competitive, right? So in the government, federal agencies like FEMA, the National Mediation Board, the Federal Mediation and Consulation Service are ones, just to give you some examples. And so while often these agencies offer on-call, fee per assignment arrangements, some do offer full-time paid positions on term limited contracts. So then there's also another position called an organizational ombuds. And if you've not heard of this before, this is actually one of the classes that we have at USC, where you really, you learn how to be an organizational ombuds. And so that's somebody who has a role that is neutral, confidential, informal, and independent. So they're an employee of an organization dedicated exclusively to assisting and serving other employees through coaching, facilitation, problem solving, mediation, and other techniques. So the ombuds literally exists to help resolve workplace conflict before it escalates. And it teaches individuals and groups to address conflict more productively and to report concerns and trends to organizational leadership at the highest level. But ultimately, they're like a big teammate and partner for anybody who may have disputes within an organization. It's an awesome, awesome role. So this is different than an ombudsman advocate, which is a role designed to advocate for patients within a particular medical system. So an organizational ombuds and an ombuds advocate, two different things. And I just wanted you to be aware of the advocate role in case you start looking up ombuds roles or something. I want you to just be aware there's multiple kinds. So for ombuds, you can find a lot of those roles in higher education. So many public and private universities have an office of the ombuds. All UCs, University of California campuses, have this role. Many federal agencies also have an office of the ombuds. So this includes the Defense Department, the FAA, Department of the Interior. State governments also frequently have ombuds offices in different departments. And that's different than a legislative ombudsman, which is a role dedicated to advocating for certain laws or legislative priorities of certain groups. So again, we have different kinds of ombuds, and we're just talking about organizational. Then there's private industry. So large companies like Coca-Cola, ExxonMobil have an office of the ombuds, and then intergovernmental agencies like the UN or the World Health Organization and others also have ombuds roles. So the other thing that I just want to touch on is an advocate. So some ADR professionals begin their careers as advocates in neutral processes, whether it's representing clients in a mediation or an arbitration. And so if you do start as an advocate, you can apply your understanding of neutral processes to help clients achieve lasting resolutions to lawsuits and non-litigated lawsuits. So, or non-litigated disputes, sorry. And so ADR advocacy can be a helpful way to build experience and then transition to a career as a professional neutral. So whether it's an arbitrator or a mediator, really whatever makes sense to you. So now I want to go into a little more of ADR administration and leadership and what all of this kind of just looks like. So we've talked about this a little bit kind of indirectly, but for-profit agencies, like we've already mentioned, offer ADR providers career opportunities a little bit in different ways, basically. So they can employ large numbers of ADR trained staff in both administrative and in leadership roles. So just to give you an example, if you want to jot these down to look them up, if you're already not familiar, is JAMS, JAMS, AAA, ADR Services Incorporated, or Judicate West. So what I would recommend is search out staff at these agencies on LinkedIn. You can see how many have advanced within the company from entry level into leadership roles, what degrees they have, what trainings they may have gone to, things like that, because this is the way that you can really start understanding what certificate program, degree program might most benefit you. Maybe you thought a certificate is what you're going to need, and then you look and everybody there has some kind of LLM in EDR, right? Or vice versa. Maybe you thought you really needed a master's of dispute resolution, but you're seeing that not everybody has that. And so maybe the ADR certificate is going to be enough of that educational knowledge for you to really advance in the way that you want to. And then for nonprofit providers, they generally offer low cost or no cost mediation and other ADR services to the community. So they receive public support for their work. And examples of these would be FINRA, FINRA, DERPA, mediation agencies, DRPA, and then also like fee dispute arbitrations, or and then executive directors, directors and managers often also have ADR education and experience as practitioners. So then there's ADR case management and conciliation. So ADR providers that are both nonprofit and for-profit employ different kinds of case management staff who really fill a critical role and routinely apply ADR skills on the job. So again, that's where I'm saying, we're covering mediation, arbitration, owning your own business, things like that. But there's also all of these different kinds of case management roles that are also critical to have: organizational knowledge, ADR dispute resolution expertise. So I just want you to be aware that this isn't meant to be limiting, right? There's so many different things that you can do with an ADR degree. So the roles like case management and conciliation definitely vary. But in some of these agencies, the case managers are the ones that are able to help parties reach resolution without ever even initiating a mediation, right? So there's lots of different opportunities out there. And then when we're talking about applying an ADR degree to your specific chosen field, I want to talk about these a little bit. So the knowledge and skills acquired through a graduate level study in ADR are highly valued by employers across many different sectors and many different professions. So business leaders from across the public and private sectors recognize that effective problem solving and conflict management really do translate into successful businesses and well-functioning workplaces. We are seeing this more and more and more in just the professional sphere, right? So industry-specific expertise is definitely necessary. So if you've already started your career and now you're looking to pivot into ADR, fantastic. That's a great way to get started. I talk to so many students who say, well, I'm looking to make a career pivot. I'm not sure, if maybe I have too much experience and maybe, I'm a little late to entering this field. No, it's so highly valuable to have the already, applied knowledge that you can just pivot over. So a few examples of professional roles which ADR degrees are commonly applied to are things like human resources, organizational change management, labor relations, labor negotiations, management consulting, international peace building, workforce optimization. These are just some of the areas that are not directly related to, mediation and arbitration or those other like quote unquote traditional ADR fields, but they require ADR expertise in order to be an effective leader in these areas. So you can also, what a lot of our students will do is leverage an ADR degree to move into a leadership role in your chosen field. So if we're being honest, most supervisory positions eventually require deployment of some kind of conflict resolution skills, right? That's typically why someone is put into a leadership role, because they know how to talk to people. They know how to mediate cases or mediate disputes, right? They know how to work with two people who may not see eye to eye and help them work together as a team. So though many supervisors might never formally mediate a dispute, ADR training allows them to allow individuals on their team to feel heard, contribute ideas, and ultimately feel bought in to the team's mission and success. So for this reason, ADR skills are highly valued in managers and supervisors. We just know this and we see it. And we as employees appreciate it when our supervisors are adept in these areas. So also, since some of our students end up looking into international ADR roles, I just wanted to talk a teeny bit about these areas. So many ADR provider agencies offer different international ADR practices. And really, it's one of the fastest growing practices in according to JAMS, one of those dispute resolution organizations that I mentioned earlier. So you can start your career in international ADR by working for an international ADR institution, like the International Chamber of Commerce, if you wanted to, the London Court of International Arbitration, the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law. If this is what you're interested in, start looking at these organizations. And then there's also arbitration associate positions with large multinational firms. It's a little bit less common in the US marketplace, but for our international students or those who are looking to work abroad, start looking into that. See if you can find some of those positions or talk to people about those programs. So if all of this sounds good, and if all of this is why you are here, get trained. Start with training. Start learning from the ground up about these areas. Ask about our ADR programs. Start learning what you need to do. Never stop learning, right? So many people are going to say this throughout your careers, literally until you retire and even after. So identify a niche area or an unmet need in the industry, and then position yourself to fill it, right? Be the person who provides that training. Be the person who does those very specific mediations, and then get experience. So if you are in law school or in any school, participate in ADR clinics, in a mediation clinic if you are at USC Gould. Ours allow students to go into court, to observe mediations, and then eventually conduct their own mediations. If you're not in a program, go shadow prominent local practitioners, get that experience, and then get noticed, right? Create a business website, market your services, participate in conferences and local ADR trade groups, right? If you are on social media, write articles, write blog posts, do something to be seen as an expert, as a professional in your specific chosen area. So, on that high note of getting noticed and being seen and exuding confidence, I want to say that's the end of our prepared presentation for today. So, as I said, this was really intended to give you a start and, a vision as to what you can do with ADR. If you want to pursue that through starting in our programs, do it. Let's talk. Let's ask questions. If you're here because you are simply interested in a career in ADR or in understanding better why ADR keeps being said and you're hearing it nonstop, it's because people are looking for professionals in this area. They're looking to advance those in their companies who have ADR skills. So that was our presentation for today. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but I hope this was helpful for those of you who just wanted some insight into, why we have these programs, who they help, how they help our students advance. So if you have questions, feel free. If not, that's fine too. Okay, I see one in the chat. How can I, as an international lawyer, have experience after graduating before going to practice in my country? So I'm not sure if this is, can you specify? Are you looking to remain an attorney, or are you hoping to get into, mediation or arbitration? I'm going to just assume that we are talking about getting into hoping to get an LLM and ADR soon. Okay, so if you are an international attorney, how can you get experience after graduation, but before going into practice? This is kind of a tricky question, but we talked about it a little bit earlier, where what I would recommend is really looking into volunteering if you can. So I can really only speak to, US practices, but what we often recommend is for our students while they're in school to look into different professional organizations. So whether it's the LA County Bar Association, looking at their dispute resolution practice or section, or the ABA dispute resolution section. We've had our MDR, Masters of Dispute Resolution students, actually be fellows for the ABA, the American Bar Association. So on a national level, they're becoming dispute resolution leaders. And from those professional associations and networks, that's how they then meet people that they can, have interviews with, or they can shadow, like I said, or that's one option. Or you can just start volunteering with nonprofits as a mediator. Or if you want to if you wanted to stick with law, volunteer with a nonprofit as, doing intakes, or as an attorney for a day, not literally a practicing attorney, but, helping with, get people kind of filling out paperwork, things like that. So that's just a start of how I would advise you there. We are going to be sending out a recording of the presentation. So for those of you who have asked that, you will get that. Let's see. So someone says, I would like to know what the bachelor's degree is best to study before going into MDR or ADR. Such a solid question. And as a type A attorney, I remember thinking this exact same thing. It doesn't matter. You are going to enter in to, I'm just going to talk, I can only speak to our MDR and ADR programs, right? You are entering into the program to become an expert in the field. You don't already need to be an expert in that field. So if you are really, really interested in becoming a mediator, or again, I'm going to say special education, because we have special education mediation program courses. If that's what you're interested in, if your passion is, helping young children thrive, maybe you want to get a degree in child development, right? Even though that's not one that would traditionally be on like a dispute resolution track, if that's where your passion lies, do that, right? So for me, I didn't know I was going to do mediation or anything, but I majored in international studies and in Spanish. So for my practice, it actually helped me conduct mediations in Spanish because that is something that I am incredibly passionate about, is taking down barriers, helping people access the justice system. So even though international studies in Spanish might not be traditional routes to the law, that's where it got me. If you really want to get, like a head start or something, which I also get, then you could do some kind of criminal justice, political science, peace building, any kind of those, degrees, majors are helpful, but you don't need it. Okay. Um, how is the MDR different from, a master's of public administration? Totally different programs. Totally different programs. I'm glad you're asking. So a master's of public administration is really looking at public administration, right? At on kind of an organizational level, right? What's needed to to run these types of public offices? How can we make sure that we're building effective systems, having positive communication in more of a like a pragmatic kind of way? This MDR program is more about really about facilitating healthy problem solving and working through disputes. So in a master's of public administration course, you might be taking courses on, government structures or organizational structures, and how to kind of properly conduct or build these kind of administrative programs. In our Masters of Dispute Resolution, you're going to be taking classes like how to conduct a mediation, the basics of negotiation skills. You're going to be doing a mediation clinic where you're actually participating in mediations. You're going to be taking law classes, so you become more of an expert in a particular area of law, if that's what's of interest to you. So they are very different programs. And what I would suggest is looking at our MDR website and the course options that we have, and then looking at a Masters of Public Administration website and looking at the courses they have, and just kind of do a side by side and see which courses you're most drawn to. And then just choose that program or chat with us. We can talk more about it. So would you recommend getting a JD if you want to practice ADR in the US? That is a very difficult question. I'm going to be honest. So that's one that I would say it's more helpful to have a one-on-one dialogue when it comes to such a specific question. A JD, as I said during our presentation, a JD helps. Being an attorney and having experience absolutely helps, but it's not necessary. There's lots of mediators out there that are practicing, that have their own businesses and are doing very well. However, with a JD, with attorney experience, again, you're going to get a little bit more legitimacy. You're going to have experience in court, and you're able to talk about why mediation can sometimes be calmer, the parties have more control, things like that, than a courtroom setting, because you've been in court, you've done it. So it's not necessary, but I do think it's helpful. Okay, so the difference between a master's of ADR and an LLM, the programs are very, very similar. The courses are very similar. You'd be taking classes with the same folks, but an LLM and ADR is for folks who already have a first degree in law. So whether it's a JD or an LLB or whatever that may be. An MDR is for those who do not have a first degree in law. So it's for people who have a bachelor's in communication, like I said, whatever it may be. So that's the main difference. A lawyer who, okay. I'm glad to see some positive comments. I hope this was helpful. I don't see any other questions right now. If you guys would like to chat, we certainly can separately. I see another question. Is the program strictly classroom, online, or mixed? So these programs that I chatted about today are all in-person programs. We do have online programs. They're a little bit different. We don't have the LLM and EDR or the MDR. We do have like a Master of Studies in Law, which is not quite the same, but similar. But for this one, these specifically, all in person. Good question. Anything else? I'm so glad to hear that this was helpful, that people got some information they were hoping for. Okay, so if you do have additional questions, I will get to that one, Ted, in just a moment. I'm going to include the chat, or the chat. In the chat, I'm going to include where you can email them. So the quickest that somebody can complete either of these programs is 1 year. So I would so each one requires 24 units, and we typically recommend 12 units each semester. If somebody, as many of our students are working full-time, then it can take as long as is needed. So we have some of our students who are like they're practicing attorneys, so they only come at night, twice a week, and so they can take a few years to complete their program because they're working during the day. They also sometimes have to take a leave of absence because they have a huge trial one semester, so they pause and then they come back after that. So we can do it however somebody might need. If you want to do it in a year, we can do that. If you are not interested in a full year program, we also have the ADR certificate, and that is a 1 semester program. That would be the quickest way to do the certificate. So if you want to learn more about that, please definitely email gipadmissions@law.usc.edu. If you want to chat more with me about career options or strategy or things like that, or course options, we can do that as well. Just let GIP admissions know that you came to this and then wanted to chat. We can get you set up with a meeting. I'm really glad to see so many comments that this was helpful. That's the whole goal, is to just help give you guys insight into the ADR world before you join a program. It's wonderful to see you all today. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you.